When I first got this car, it's just a simple 1.8 carbureted car. I actually didn't do much work to the engine. I just made sure it ran properly. It was just a cheap car that needed a bit of work. So I decided to see how far I could take this car on a very low budget. The first thing I did was to source some nice wheels for it. Cars, they're all about the wheels and they're all about the stance. That's all that really matters on a car, is the wheels and stance. If you've got them down to a T, then the rest of the car will follow. Simple as that. What I've done, to be fair, I say a budget, these wheels were they were the biggest part of the budget, I suppose. These wheels cost me £500. They're original proper BORBET A's. They are 9.5J rear, which are huge for this car, and the fronts were 7.5J wide. As you can see here, these wheels are properly wide on the back. They poked a lot. There was like a couple of inches poke sticking out on these wheels. So as you'll see a bit further ahead in this video, I had to flare the arches on a budget to incorporate these wheels. The next thing I did was to pay, I think it was about 150 quid for a set of just cheap eBay coilovers, so I could give the car the stance that it needed to sit on these wheels. So I then got stuck in, fitted the coilovers, pretty simple job on the Golfs really. I then lowered them down as far as I could. I wanted to see how far I could slam it on its basic wheels. Just to be fair, I was just playing around. And as you can see here, it can go pretty low on these coilovers. The next thing I did was to fit the huge rear wheels and then start working on the rear wheel arch, just to bring it out enough to cover the poke of the rear wheel. What I'd done was I used an arch roller. It was just, I think it was like a 20 quid arch roller off eBay. I stuck it on the rim, started working it backwards and forwards, and I really pushed it to the limits, this arch roller. I really stretched that wheel arch right out until it kind of got to the edge of where the rim sat on the wheel. And I wasn't too worried about the wheel arch, how it looked, because I will be covering it later. As you can see here, I managed to get the wheel arches out far enough to be, I reckon, road legal, and it also gave it a nice chunky arse, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? It gave it that nice big presence on the rear. The next thing I did was to just have a play around with the headlights, just to do a bit of custom stuff to the headlights. So what I'd done was I heated the headlights up in the oven for a little bit, for about 10 minutes, so the glue would melt around the glass. I pulled the glass off. I then painted all the inside of the headlight with like a matte black colour with a brush, but I didn't do it on any of the parts that reflect the light forward. I only did it on the parts that aren't actually used by the headlight to create a beam, if that makes sense. So then I put it back together, put it back on the car, and as you can see from this effect here, it does look quite good. If you want to find out more about this mod, it's actually called the Joey mod. No idea why, but it is. But yeah, anyway, to be fair though, I only had these headlights on the car for a little bit. As you'll see later in the video, I swapped them out for some better ones. I then got started on sanding the whole bottom of the car around, but basically from the trim level down. I wanted to sand the whole bottom of the car, ready to paint it a certain colour and a certain texture, and you'll see later in the video why I did it and the effect I was going for. What I did then was I started painting the bumpers using the cans, basically, these spray cans, but the paint I used was actually satin black, and it's textured paint. Do you know when you see old cars from like the 80s and stuff, they've got that black textured bumper? This paint basically does the same effect. What I wanted to do was I took the bumpers off and I wanted to paint the front and rear bumper in this textured paint, but what I also wanted to do was paint the side of the car from the trim level down in the same textured paint, so it matched all the way around the car. What I was going for is the 1980s. I don't know if you know much about the Volkswagen cars, but there was a car that was called the B3 Passat GT, and that had all the bottom of the car in the textured black, and that was kind of the look I was going for. What I did then was I got a cheap eBay version of the Mk3 Golf GTI wheel arch trims and side trim. It had to be for a 5-door because it fitted the estate car, and I got stuck in putting them on. What this done was it covered up the paint line, the edge of the paint line, and it covered up the wheel arches on the rear of the work I'd done to them. The next thing I did was to make a splitter for the front of the car. What I wanted to go with is I actually went with the B3 Passat front splitter because the VR6 one on the Mk3 Golf, it's all right, but everyone does it. So I thought I'd change it up, and I wanted to have a bit of a pointy front nose on the car. So this is how I fitted it. A bit of a retro fit here. I had to do some customization, and I got it to fit on the car, and it looked quite good, I think. What I decided then, after fitting the bumper to the car, was I didn't actually like the huge areas on the front bumper that have the indicators and the fog lights. I wanted to go for a bit of a smoother effect. So what I did was I smoothed out, or to be fair, I'll be honest, I bought a bumper off of a friend who had already smoothed them out. What I'd done was, basically what he'd done was he'd completely filled up the holes using fiberglass, completely smoothed out all the, if you know about Mk3 Golfs, you know they've got these huge indicators in the front bumper. Basically, he smoothed them out. I then took the bumper, painted it, and got it ready to go on the car. What I had to do then was, because what I'd done is I'd removed the indicators from the front of the car. So what I then had to do is figure out a way to put the indicators back on the front of the car. So what I figured out was on the bottom corners of the front bumper is these two little grills. I cut holes in them grills and I put the indicators, the original ones, behind them holes. So when you looked at the front of the car, because the indicators were blacked out, you couldn't actually see any indicators. But when the indicators worked, they flashed nicely. So it still was road legal. As you can see here from this picture, the smoothed off front bumper and the hidden indicators work quite well. Then I managed to source some twin headlights for the Mk3 Golf from eBay. I think I got them for like 120 quid. What I'd done was I took the covers off of them, painted them the same textured paint as the rest of the car, fitted them, and this is how they look. I think they look bloody good. Now it was on to doing the little finishing touches on the car, just the little bits and bobs that make it stand out a bit. So what I'd done was I got these centre cap stickers for the centre of the wheels, stuck them on. I think they're quite cool, to be fair. Then it was on to doing the decal details, I like to call them. I'm a strong believer in it's the little touches on cars that make them. It's not all the big stuff, it's all the little details you put on a car which makes them pop. So what I decided to do then, sticking with the 80s theme, I wanted to get the 80s style pinstripe down the side, and still sticking with the GT Passat theme, I got this little GT sticker as well, and I put them together to make them work, to incorporate it into the whole theme. So as you can see from this, it's a tiny touch, but it does make a big impact. Then it was on to the rear lights. What a lot of people do is they use tinting spray on rear lights to, obviously black the rear lights out. I like to take it a little bit of a step further. I like to do a few custom details using the paint, just like it's normal paint. So what I've done was I masked up the reversing part of the rear light, which is, I think it's illegal to have that covered anyway. So what I've done was I actually used the same pinstripe that I used to do on the side of the car and used it as a masking tape to make a nice effect over the rear reversing area of the rear light. And as you can see here, I put it on, I done a few coats of the black, then once I'd finished I peeled it off and then I clear coated the whole rear light to give them that nice shine. And there we have it, that's the difference between the before and after of the rear lights. And here they are fitted to the car. I think they look quite good. The next thing I did was to do a decal on the front bonnet. It's the same gold as the pinstripe down the side of the car. What the idea that behind this was the old Mk3, I think it was, Escort RS16i. On the bonnet of them, they've got a similar decal, and I've always loved it, so I thought I'd kind of incorporate that into this. And there we have it. There's a finished result. I think it looks quite good. It used to get a lot of attention. A lot of people said they loved it. I then took it to, I can't remember what show it was. I took it to a show, stuck it in a show and shine, and I won Best Water Cord, all on a complete budget build. So there you have it. That is how you turn a crappy old Mk3 Golf Estate into a show and shine award-winning car. Hope you liked the video. Hope you've got some good ideas. I hope to see you for the next one. Cheers.